Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our live training event this Friday afternoon.
Absolutely.
For many of you finishing off the week, some in sales roles, maybe just starting, but wherever you're at, I'm glad you've joined us. We've got this event live on Facebook. We've got this event recorded. We've got lots of valuable information to share this afternoon. We're going to be dealing with four main topics. One is digital marketing and best practice in digital marketing. So I've invited Rich Latham from Rich Training to share best practice and what that looks like in the industry right now. Rich is working with one of our franchisees, Darren Jones in Brisbane, and so is going to be able to show us how that's rolling out and what that looks like. So welcome, Rich. We're also, hey mate, we're also going to ask Tim to just interact with Rich in terms of how the resources as a franchisor that we provide, how they interface with the sort of work that Rich does. I'm going to do a presentation on team because many of you have got small and growing teams. Some of you got large teams. I think that's an important topic, and we need to touch on team regularly and how to do that well, because it often, if you're having challenges with your team, you're having challenges with your business. So it's great to talk about how to do team well. Shane's going to talk about a product called docusign, and you're starting to see this product more and more in getting large documents signed and getting things signed easily. So we just want to talk about how we can do that in the building industry, just an introduction to that subject. And Richard Bremner is going to continue our theme on sales. We're consistently looking at how to do sales well. When you've got a digital marketing solution bringing in this overflowing pipeline of good AAA grade clients, then how do you take those leads and transition them into signed contracts? Richard Brown will share some principles around how to do that well. We'll kick off first though with Rich Latimer from Rich Training and talk about best practice in digital marketing. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I think we might even have Darren on here as well, somewhere in amongst the list. And some of you I would have, met before. Is my video on?
Your video's not on yet, but we probably, we're happy to see your video. You might be just do a screen share. So if you've got a presentation there, the screen share options at the bottom.
Sure. I'll just
go to a screen share.
Put that on in a second. Here we are. So yeah, essentially, some of you guys we've met and spoke with, and a few people we've done some things in the past. When we first came across Glenn and the team and you guys, when we were kind of more just inspiring and helping people move into the digital space, and so that took the form back then of quite simply getting a decent social media presence in place, or having one, and then looking in and around lead capture and content management and those sorts of things. But we weren't at the time, doing that for people. We've come sort of a long way since then, and one of the people that we're role modeling some best practices with is Darren. So essentially, the things that you need to know about social at the moment is the growth in it has not ebbed. Okay, so it's just compounded. Essentially, it's just grown. The flood at the moment, there was a flood towards Instagram, and so it's become a major part of our strategy. So essentially, knowing that Instagram, whilst still nowhere near as big as Facebook, it's gone from, so in terms of best practices, knowing that you need to be actively within Instagram as much as you are within Facebook is really important. It's one of the first things I'd say. It's you can't do one and not the other. Generally our content we do across both and slightly modify. So with Instagram, we keep it a little bit punchier. There's obviously less capabilities. So within Instagram, you can't really be driving people as we are here with Darren's campaign that's actually just launched now, literally today, as in 10 minutes ago. You can't be driving people as easily through organic content in terms of lead generation, but you can be growing a connection and growing a essentially, I mean, with Darren, one of the things we've done is coached him in and around his video usage. So the Instagram stories and videos, when combined with an actual strategy and then combined with lead management, are really effective. So
Rich, just pause you there. So the headlines of what you'd say is best practice digital marketing, the headlines are Facebook, Instagram, a lead magnet delivered in those forums. Is that right?
Yeah, a lead magnet delivered in the forums, but the lead magnet can't lead. and the lead magnet, for you guys that might not be familiar, is simply, well, not simply, it's basically finding the edge and the agitation point in your marketplace. So with Darren, we went through a process of really analyzing what he's doing with his Integrity New Home business, what he wants to do, what he has had success, what he hasn't. And then as we went into creating that lead magnet, it's tied in. And then in terms of the Facebook, Instagram thing, Instagram is a place for your face. It's funny because for you, Facebook's got the Facebook, but what we're seeing now, the engagement of small video in Instagram comparable to Facebook is massive. So as we roll out a strategy for Darren, we, and I know, that at the beginning he might have been that chuffed about it, but now he's actually becoming quite good, and we've got a plan for where we're headed with him with his videos. His Instagram videos tie back into the lead magnet. So the key now is that
But just bring me back to the headlines. Facebook, Instagram, email marketing? Is that still in the top digital marketing?
Top three. So it all has to drive home to email, and here it is here. So the visitors will be driving through from that content. So here's an example of some of the content that, that converts. So it's conversational, it's engagement based. There's humor as well. A big part of the industry at the moment is being more lighthearted. It's really having that mix. But with the Instagram, Facebook story, Instagram is all about video now. That's where, and so you talk about what's happening, you engage with your audiences in Instagram, you then turn those into, over time, you turn some of that content into paid advertising that you ultimately drive often and at times back to Facebook, but often to the lead magnet. And then the lead magnet will actually come through and start to do, so we created this lead magnet specifically for Darren. It will start to do some of the psychological conversion in terms of when people read that, they're getting a deeper sense of, Darren and what he's done with his I&H business and what they're really looking for. And then the next, best practice is to have an automation in place, a funnel or a sequence of emails that are then tied into that marketing strategy that start to pre-qualify the person. So they're the headlines. They're the key thing.
Facebook, Instagram, it's EMS. If you've got those three sorted out, you've got best practice digital marketing.
Yeah, and then your email system has to be the backbone of it. And then the headlines within each of those are Instagram, it's all about the micro video, and that's you having a connection with your audience around what you do, and then you need to convert some of those into ads that drive towards your lead magnet, but they don't directly speak to it. Whereas Facebook, you can directly speak to it. I mean, even his headline, even the cover photo of the actual page is like, 7 ways to create a cutting edge home. And with the lead magnet.
Is a lead magnet something you'd say is a free resource you're providing to clients? Is that what you're describing as a lead magnet?
Yeah, it is. It's changed over time because the market are aware of it. Well, surprisingly, not that many. But yeah, the idea of it is there was effort put into this. Darren really sort of dived in and with our team to kind of look at, well, what would we communicate? How am I going to communicate this so that it does 2 things, Tim? It provides value to the reader in the sense of it opens their mind to things they never thought of when considering, in his case, when considering creating a cutting edge home with functional spaces. So just that in itself, like everyone's got a unique market and a unique marketplace and even a unique passion. And that really comes out of, so I guess winding back to Glenn's, give us the headlines. I guess before we even talk about the Facebook, Instagram, lead magnet email system, we've actually got to talk about the marketing strategy at its core. So really don't even bother going out, putting out the content until you've really defined your 3 avatars, the 3 pain points across those 3 avatars, and then your conversion strategy to reach them, those 3 avatars and those 3 pain points. And then that'll find its way into the ads. So the lead magnet is this, but what is out in the world role modeling this? Well, up to nearly 60 individual micro messages across both platforms is all funneling back to that. And some of that is actually Darren himself talking. He's not necessarily, hi, it's Darren, grab my thing, but it's along the lines of, it's Darren from Integrity Homes Brisbane, and he'll explain an element of what he's doing that gives him an edge. And then we can encourage the viewer of that video to jump in and grab some information. So it's kind of both, Tim. It's information plus, but the headlines are now is that you can't go out into the marketplace without having done that initially, simply because of the saturation out there. Not so much in your industry, okay? So let's face it, in the building industry, you guys have got anyone who's actually doing this kind of level, like in Darren's case, you're head and shoulders anyway, because just the majority of your competitors are not, but they're waking up fast, yeah? They're not executing well, but they're waking up to it.
So, Rich, if I'm a builder that doesn't have a digital marketing presence, what sort of lead time to invest in this sort of process until I'm seeing an outcome with leads coming my way? We're talking days, weeks, months. What's the lead time?
Well, we've ironed out a lot of kinks with Darren. Thanks, Darren. Being a guinea pig in a way, because as you guys know, I'm working with a lot of sort of different type of clients, but with you guys. We need time. It's usually a couple of months process that we go through where we're doing marketing meetups. We're getting clear on that strategy. We're then needing to amend and fix and reintegrate the email system. We're needing to create all of the autoresponders. We're obviously then needing to generate that document, make sure it's fine-tuned. There's copywriting meetings and things like that. So it's a couple of months or so before we start to kick into the paid advertising launch. But it's around a 2 to 3 month process to really get that really right. We call it our go-to-market stage. And it's
so 2 to 3 months before you're in the market, really, and then another couple of months before you're starting to see leads off that. Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's right. Like, for example, we've launched literally just 3 or 4 hours ago, we've launched Darren and basically at that 3 month mark, I think almost within 3 days of the, which is kind of what we say. Because like in Darren's case, yes, there was a Facebook presence. Yes, there was a basic kind of, and I know some of you guys have an email system, but we had to refix and redo all that. And then in Darren's case, we had to actually get out into there. We had to actually put meat on the bones. So we had to go through and get quite a bit of content up before we could go into the marketplace with a lead magnet, because Facebook penalizes your advertising. So basically they go, well, what's going on organically back across both Facebook and Instagram, because they own both of them now. And it's really complex actually keeping up with how they operate. But so another best practice or headline, if you like, Glenn, is that you've got to make sure there's some really decent strategic content leading up to the launch of a paid advertising campaign. Otherwise, essentially just wasting and burn. I call it the boosted post. Burn your money on the boosted post. So people put up a post and it's so tempting. It's like gambling. Facebook did it that way deliberately. You can just click boosted post and add your credit card and just watch your money just slip from your fingers. That's something to avoid in best practice. Boosted posts are actually completely useless as an advertising tool within Facebook. They literally are a gambling tool. So the way that you do content marketing is you pull a piece of content out, you separate it, you put it as part of an ad set, and you throw it back in through the mix and across your entire targeting spectrums. If you do that, wow, you'll get beautiful ROI, Yeah. So that's another best practice.
I should point out, Rich, that those tools are available as well. So people just don't know the distinction between those, between a boost and put that through the proper channels. So all that is available in Facebook, and they can use it that way.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just the distinctions there. So stay away from the boosted posts.
Yeah, yeah. Keep your finger off the button. And then, so they're some of the key things that at the moment. And I guess other headlines or other best practices is in and around your landing pages. So make sure you've got an exceptional mobile landing page platform. Make sure that you've got, we use a minimum of 4 to 5 A/B split tests on our landing pages, and we track those consistently because we need to really make sure that they're the right one. And where, as of now, we're starting to roll out 2-step landing pages, which, they're converting a lot higher. So the ideal, winding back to Glenn, what's the difference? The difference often happens for a building company where the leads coming in start to what I call straighten up into a specific sort of, like, it's going to take us a while now with Darren. It's going to take us another 3 or 4 months, and he's going to need to stay solid on his commitment to what we're teaching him in his meetups about his video content, which he's excelling at that. We're staying strategic, and what happens is that within 6 to 9 months, the Brisbane marketplace that we're exposing Darren and Integrity New Homes Brisbane to, they're going to start to gather a perception around him and Integrity New Homes for Brisbane. It's going to be very tight, and it's going to be so his inquiry rate, even if they're coming off phone or by the website, is going to start to straighten up to over time to be more and more and more what he wants. Yeah. So that's the headline: consistency of messaging. Yeah.
Anyone want to use the Q&A just to throw a couple of questions at Rich while we've got him? Because I think it's what Rich is demonstrating here with Darren's very unique and best practice. Thanks for coming on this afternoon, Rich.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer any questions
in the Q&A there.
Rich, just a quick question for you. I've got some of our guys that are a bit concerned about doing like candid videos online. So themselves walking through a building site or other topics. But their video skills aren't that great, and they're not that necessarily camera ready. What would you say about that? Do you think it's good just to get on there and give it a crack, or do you think it needs to be professionally shot before that's put on live Facebook?
Well, I can answer that, but I wonder if Darren is out there, because he's the one that we've been role modeling with, and I think that Darren, correct me if I don't know if he can speak on the call as well, but
yeah, I can still speak.
I remember there was some resistance from you, or that same thing Tim mentioned happened for you, and I've just watched. Like, I know Ria's been meeting up with you once a month, and you guys have been getting tighter on your strategy. And I've been, I watch all of my clients' videos, but yours have just been getting better and better and tighter in your niche, and which, I don't know, how did you find the experience?
Yeah, look, I'm not usually that backwards in coming forwards, but at the end of the day, I'm probably not as cultured as I could be on it. But I've just been throwing them out there, and I certainly, the initial ones were probably a little bit raw and a little bit too serious. But I'm trying to do that whole thing of take yourself a little bit less serious, trying to get guys in the photos and in the video as well in behind, and say good day to them, just so you get a bit of banter going on and that type of thing. I don't think it's that hard at all. Hold your camera sideways and hit reverse.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's right. So it's funny, Tim, because what happens on our end is obviously we're meeting once a month with Darren and sort of having talks about that, and then looking at what we're going to do, what he's going to commit to over that we're doing other content and driving lead content, doing that, but he's then got his commitment. But we turn those into ads, and what we do is we give them about 3 or 4 days to run, and it's really interesting, Darren, and you'll see it as you start to get your and I just want to show actually. So another big best practice, Glenn, is exceptional reporting. So Darren will start to receive some automated reporting at the end of each of his periods, which will just go through everything that's happening across all of his platforms, Google, Instagram, Facebook, the EMS system, all of the metrics. It'll show the different ads that are performing. And one of the things that you're going to notice, Darren, is, yeah, mate, sometimes it's some of those rough as candid ones that just strike a chord with an audience. And then what happens is that we watch for that. Yeah. So as we go in and do and this is another best practice for you guys, that as you're watching your videos out on Instagram take effect, start to keep an eye on those stats. Yeah. And when you see one starting to pick up in a demographic that you think is in your avatar demographic, go in there and put some money on it. It's like basically if I rang and said, look, I'll tell you who's going to win the Melbourne Cup because I've been watching 30,000 Melbourne Cups and I know exactly all the trends, and, go and put all your money on that one. It's kind of like that. And it's over time that we gather this intelligence. But what will happen, Darren, with you is there'll be aspects of your personality, of the way that you do what you do on the job site. Some will work and some won't. And then Ria, as she comes back with you, will literally pull you up and say, hey, Darren, when you do this, don't do that anymore because that's not working in your marketplace and we can't use it. And we get to learn that through not guesswork, but statistical data analysis. And that's a really important best practice, Glenn.
Yeah, good. And look, I think that Tim's observation is valid. A lot of people are spooked by the camera, by seeing themselves there. And DJ's uniquely gifted in that he went into that confident, but many don't. But I think it's like anything you learn in business or in life. You've just got to give it a try. I mean, we know video works well in these mediums. If you want to play in this space, you've got to learn it. And learning things is just trying. So I'd encourage anyone that's feeling reserved. What do you got to lose? Just try. And you get better. You get better in time.
100%.
Yeah, well, you can actually. I mean, we do have some clients who literally will not do it, even if they were forced, and they simply palm the job off to someone else. They generally have a carpenter that they regularly use, or they have a particular labourer. And what they do is that they will at times divert that and get someone to do it, but it'll be a regular person often. But at the end of the day, or the salesperson. So for those businesses that have a dedicated salesperson, that person can do it. And the great thing is for them to go out on site or do meet and greets with clients really, really works well. But I mean, keep an eye on what Darren's doing because he's doing it also in alignment with where we're headed. And I mean, you guys know. I mean, the block. I mean, there's so many TV shows. People love it. They just lap it up. It's
good, Rich. I want to thank you for coming on again this afternoon.
Cool.
Really enjoying watching what you're doing with DJ. We're hoping we see some real rewards in DJ's business over the next few months.
For sure.
Cool. And, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Cheers, Darren. Cheers, Tim. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon, good weekend.
All right. So I guess the logical thing to move on to off the back of that is sales. And if you invest in a marketing process, best practice digital marketing, you're likely to get some quality leads. And then what do you do with those quality leads? Last time in our training session, we talked about the sales process. We've written into Gyro to better document the sales process and given you some tools around that. Richard's going to share some things this afternoon around the sales process. Richard, are you able to take us into the next part of our training now? Hello, Richard. Can you hear me, Richard? Looks like we might circle back to Richard once he's got whatever sorted out at that end. Shane, are you ready to roll?
Yeah, why not?
Shane,
you guys all hear me?
Shane, I asked Shane to show us what's happening with docusign. And again, very much related to sales and smoothing that sales process. I know how many of you might have sat with a client who's said, "Okay, I'm here to sign the contract, and I've got an appointment in 5 minutes' time. Let's get it done." And then it just totally just blown away by the amount of paperwork a building contract entails in the signature process. So there is some software out there that's really smoothing this, and Shane's just going to give us an introduction to that now.
All right, so hopefully you can all see my screen.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so DocuSign, as Glenn was saying, it's pretty exciting stuff. DocuSign itself is a huge conglomerate. They did an IPO a couple of years ago, rated at a few $1 billion now, buying up companies like crazy because I guess that there is a market for this. As consumers become more digitally aware, no different from our portal system, we have to keep up. We have to provide them the kinds of options they need, whether that be access to information at odd hours of the day or night, or potentially issuing them contracts or variations to them once again so that they can execute them at their leisure, or just so they can have a more digital experience. Now, DocuSign itself, as it says here, has a 30-day free trial. It's also available in a large range of corporate packages. The pricing on those varies. The way they price it is on an envelope basis. So each time you send something to be signed, that's an envelope, and it uses up your paid, pool of envelopes. So there's there's quite a lot going on here.
Have you got a sense of the cost to sign a typical building contract, Shane?
Yep. So it would range between probably $10 to $15 per envelope, depending on the number of envelopes that are being purchased at the start and the level of plan that you're on. So the top tier plan that we used in our business 2 years ago worked out at about $7.50, $8 per envelope, and that was the top of the range corporate plan with SMS verifications and corporate branding, all of those kinds of things. If you were to be taking fewer envelopes or even more envelopes, so the pricing would be obviously adjusted accordingly. They've also got, personal plans that are available as well. So they're not necessarily the best for, a business, but certainly if you're sending one variation or one file every so often, there is personal plans available as well. So I thought I'd just use up my 15 minutes talking about, firstly, the negatives, and then secondly, the vast array of positives relating to digital contract signing. So DocuSign itself, as I said earlier, huge company, huge background, as in, they have some of the world's largest customers on board. Comcast, as you can see here, they've got it all on their website. They're huge. They do things and they do them well. So just circling back to the actual concept of digital signing, less specific to DocuSign, there's a few instances where digital execution of contracts can't be done. They're just not allowed due to the legislation specifically relating to that item. One of those would be execution of deeds. Whether or not you use these in your business is something you'd have to evaluate. But for 99% of the agreements or contracts or variations you would be executing, a digital solution will fit the bill. So once again, as I said, I'll start with the cons and then work our way back to the pros. One negative that we experienced very infrequently when we were using it in our business, I'd say it was probably 2 out of 50, was that not all age groups or backgrounds of people like it. Some people hate the experience. Some people just can't get their head around it, hate computers, want to sit down and look at something in paper, don't trust the internet, I don't know, or just are not that way inclined. And so that's a given. You're going to come across a consumer that's not going to be pleased by the prospect, and you're going to have to manage that via traditional contract execution. But it's going to be in the minority. witnesses and guarantors can be difficult unless you've got their details in advance. So it just means when you're preparing a contract, you've got to be better administratively. You've got to forward plan, you've got to speak with the client, you've got to address some of the pain points before you get to contract signing, find out who their witness is, find out if they have guarantors, and address all of that before sending it, so that you don't find that you've got to be sending it again or making concessions partway through.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, each envelope has a cost associated. So if a client declines a contract, well, you're using another envelope to send another one. So there is costs there, but they are relatively small, as I was saying, $7, $15, thereabouts. Setting up and administering the actual digital execution, getting it right, getting your stamps on the documents, just compiling all the vast array of files, in my opinion, would probably require an above average skill set on the computer. I wouldn't be tasking this with someone who's just not that strong in that space. And I guess there is always that connotation that it could be considered less personal. They're really the only cons that, and I spent a lot of time sitting down trying to come up with as unbiased approach to this as possible, but they're really the only cons I could come up with. Now there's, as I said earlier, a vast array of pros. You've got faster turnarounds. If the contract's presented correctly, the pain points are talked through comprehensively and accurately in anticipation of sending through the contract, there's no reason why you couldn't have that contract issued, signed, returned, automatically uploaded into your system, named, and have the appropriate tasks in the system marked off in 5 minutes. It is literally that fast. Email goes straight out. It arrives on any device. The software can be accessed from a computer, laptop, tablet, mobile. I've got an Android dash in my car. I could sign a building contract in my car. Not gonna say I will, but I could. So it's amazing in terms of I guess the employee cost associated with printing, binding, preparing, sitting down for 4 hours, signing it face to face, lugging it back across the countryside potentially to be countersigned by the builder, returning it to the client, printing it, scanning it back in. As you can see, there's some huge business savings here.
Shane,
Yes.
Can I just jump in there for a moment?
Yep.
It's just important that around the contract signing process, that 4 hours, part of that is very important part of the process to flag with clients about certain issues which may occur during the course of construction.
Correct, agreed. And that's what I was saying earlier on about having the conversations in advance. If we as builders, we've done enough of these, we've issued enough of these contracts, we know what the pain points are going to be. We can, in 90% of situations, preempt what clause in the contract a consumer is going to have an issue with. And if you're diligent about it in the first instance, there's no reason why you can't have these hard conversations first. So that when the contracts arrive to the consumer, it's not something they haven't seen before or something that hasn't already been discussed. It's just a more litigious version of a conversation.
It's also important to confirm that any changes that have occurred between the final round of sales estimate and the actual contracts that have been included and have been addressed, so you remove that element.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is once again why it becomes more important to address everything before you get to this stage. Don't turn your contract round into another drafting round. It should be round 1, round 2, round 3. If the client asks for any changes, it's a round 4. It's not a contract. It's the contract should be presenting to them exactly what they've already seen before. That should be how it's addressed. It shouldn't be treated like another drafting or pricing round.
Yeah, spot on, Shane. So I think the Richard's point is extremely valid, and I want to reinforce it that you don't want to not talk about the pain points when you're dealing with a contract. You don't want to get halfway through the job, that pain point comes up, and you're referring back to the contract that they should have known about. Human nature knows that we're not going to treat a contract like that. Most people are going to grab it, sign it as quickly as they can, and a conventional way of signing is going to take 2 or 3 hours. You're going to want to have had a good conversation dealing with variations, site access, timeliness of payment, etc. Positioned that with the client, and then when the contract signing comes, then it can be done as quickly as 5 minutes, as Shane's shared. So Shane, I see a question's come in. Would you mind addressing that?
Yeah, I was just reading it then. So we've got, I currently regularly sign our initial page by page with Adobe Acrobat Reader. Or do you have the ability to do that? So the Adobe Acrobat Reader is slightly dissimilar. That's effectively putting an initial or a digital signature of sorts on a PDF file. It's not not what you would actually call a digital signature per se. It's more so just a electronic version of your hard signature. So a digital signature is required to capture various things that you can, without a doubt, prove identity. So they may range from, capturing a license number, capturing computer IP addresses, email addresses, mobile phones, things like that, so that if there's ever a dispute, you can say, well, almost without a doubt, this person was the person to have transacted this. What you're doing is more so just marking a file and returning it, because they don't know that that's your initial. They don't know that that's actually even your signature any more than, I guess, writing it by hand. So it is different. Someone's sending you a file, you're just marking it and sending it back. This system's a little bit different, where there's designated push buttons and instructions and a lot more gathering of information to verify for both parties that the contract is actually legit and has been executed correctly.
Yeah, we're moving into an age where a proper digital signature like DocuSign delivers is more robust legally than your handwritten signature, because someone could have forged your handwritten signature. It's a lot harder to forge a digital signature when you're using a process like DocuSign.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
Shane, it might be important to highlight here as well that once it's signed with DocuSign, that document can't be edited in the future.
Correct. It's stored forever. It's retained in a special locked file. If you try and extract a page from it or manipulate it in any fashion, it actually breaks the encryption and the signature in the file, so it becomes worthless. So the tampering is impossible. It is what it is. If the document doesn't have these special files saved within it, then it is not the original file. And then just circling through to Denise's question, witnessing would occur exactly the same way as the original person signing. You need to know who the witness is in anticipation. They need to have an email address and or a mobile phone number, and you issue the contract to them simultaneously, so that they're treated like a party to the contract. So they just get a link and they press the buttons and type in their name, and it creates them a digital signature that looks like their name effectively, or they can even hand write in a signature that they can use if they want to use their proper signature.
Does the client and the witness need to be in the same room, Shane?
Well, no. So depending on what the contract is. So a deed, for example, and that's partly the reason why digital execution of contracts with deeds is quite difficult and potentially illegal, is because by definition a deed has to be executed by all parties simultaneously in the same location. An agreement or a contract doesn't have that connotation. The witness isn't defined in the building contract. They're not defined what their purpose is. So it kind of comes down to interpretation. I've always interpreted that the witness is effectively there to verify that the person signing it is the person who they're saying they are. That's usually the goal of a witness, is that they're meant to have known the person for 12 months or be able to evidence they are who they are by seeing a license or something to that effect. So if you were given an email address and you were given some background to who the witness is, and they said, this is my brother, and here's his email address, here's his phone number, and here's his proper name, that person can evidence, can sign as the witness, because all they're doing is confirming the identity of the party to the contract.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just had a couple others. I was going to say, so file size wise, it's a lot smaller, so it's a lot easier to transport around the place. It gives clients flexibility to execute contracts at their own leisure. They can sit down and have dinner and look at it over 3 or 4 days, which can be good and bad. the longer they look at something, the more they may start to question it. But simultaneously, it takes away any implication or question about duress or being pressured into executing something, because you've given them all the time they need in their own home at their own leisure to execute that. Like, there's no way they can come back and say, I didn't know what I was signing, especially if the system says they looked at the document 4 different times on 4 different days.
Yeah, good. All right. So we're seeing this in banking and finance. We're seeing it right across the industry. I'm sure many of you have used DocuSign when documents have been sent to you. So you can really smooth the contract signing process for your clients with this. I've asked Shane to do a survey on this some point next week, just looking at the appetite for using DocuSign in the business, and then we'll decide how to position based on the results of that survey.
It is possible. I would just like to run over the in-person signing just before we wrap up, because it kind of circles back to one of Richard's comments there about the relationship. And so in-person signing is a little bit different in that it allows you to nominate someone such as a sales consultant, be the person hosting the signing day. So you can send the contract to the sales consultant and send, I guess, a copy to the client simultaneously, but it won't let them sign it. It allows them to review it, and it says you can't sign this until you sit down with this person face to face and all sign it simultaneously. And so what it does is it brings about all the parties to one location. They all sit down in front of the one computer. You can set up question and answers. So it says put in your license number. As I said, you can put in unique codes that get sent to their mobiles, once again, to verify they are indeed there on the day. And the contract can be signed in the same casual sense, face to face. Any questions you can go over then and there together. You can work through it no different, but instead of working through it on 2 or 3 different hard copies on a desk where people are swapping over and just going through and initialing every page, you can say, okay, it's person A's turn to sign. They hand the keyboard and mouse to person A. They click, 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 click. Then it pops up on screen and says, okay, pass to person B. They get a unique code. They answer it in some questions. They click, click, click. Sales consultant wraps it up. They shake hands. Contract signed in, say, 20 minutes. And you still get that personal face-to-face if there's any issues, or as Richard said, if you need to go over some price changes or plan changes that weren't previously addressed. But you also get the speed, the cost savings, and the digital experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good observations. Thank you for sharing that, Shane.
Not to worry, I'll
very,
down this.
Thank you.
How do I stop sharing? There we go.
There we go. So, Richard's resolved his technical issues, I believe, and is going to share with us some further thoughts around the sales processes. You're right to go, Richard.
Yes, I am.
Great.
So we're going to cover 3 things in the sales training today. We're going to review the new iGyro tasks, which we flagged with you in our last training session, and show you what they look like on the screen. We're going to confirm also the new mail merge items, and we're going to delve into a new exciting world, the world of the value box. Worth mentioning when we're looking at sales to remember, and some of you may have heard of Thomas Edison as someone that invented the telephone, but there was another Thomas Edison, not very well known in the building industry, who made the observation that sales are missed by most people in the Australian building industry because they're dressed in overalls and look like work, which I think is a lovely quote. But what it's really focusing on in that when we're selling to people, we're not just making friends with them, although that may happen, and if so, that's a bonus, that we're going to work very hard to earn the right to ask the client for the business. So the tasks that we've created specifically in iGyro that Tim's put together, we'll present them to you again now in a visual form. It's worth mentioning, as we all know when we're selling, that even with the most perfect structure, there are always going to be situations which sometimes fall outside the way in which the system's been structured, and this is no different. So, for example, if you're in a display home and the client first comes and contacts you, you may not be emailing them the new client questionnaire, as we've identified there on the section you can see on the screen there. We may actually be filling that out in person. So the flow and way in which things work in terms of the training we're doing today do have some flexibility built into them. So the new client questionnaire, you may recall, was designed to act as a qualification tool that, in this instance, say, for example, a client's rung up and you've spoken to them, you would then send that client questionnaire through to them, and it basically self-qualifies them. They fill out the information and email it back to you. That then enables you to move to this next stage, which is the audition call. When you contact the client, follow up the return questionnaire and answer any questions that they may have raised, or from your own sort of point of view, clarified any areas where you need additional information. It's important to remember that that qualification is good. If somebody can't be bothered to provide you with the information you need to create an estimate and sell them something, then they're not genuine prospects, and you've actually made better use of your time. What we're also doing here is we're scaffolding, which is what they call in education circles. It's a fancy term for just letting people know what's going to happen next. Research is very clear that people feel most confident when they know the immediate steps around the process that they're going through, and that it's delivered in a simple fashion with simple language, which is what we're doing here. So once you've done the audition call to address anything in the questionnaire, you're then establishing a convenient time to do a site meeting on their block. And at that site meeting, you're also going to present the site meeting agenda, and you're going to get their details in order to post out to them a copy of the corporate magazine. What we're establishing here is a flow of professional service, providing information, following up, making phone calls when we said we would, including doing a follow-up phone call to make sure that they've actually received the brochure, and also emailing them a copy of the site meeting agenda so they know ahead of time what items are going to be discussed at that meeting. And that agenda also gives them a framework for the next stages in the process in a simple form. We haven't gone to too much detail, so they can see what the next steps are, and that gives them confidence. That then moves on to the actual site meeting itself when you use the site inspection report. So just recapping then, the 3 new mail merge items and the correct names of them are on your screen there. So the new client questionnaire, the site meeting agenda, and the site inspection report. I'll just quickly jump into a test screen here just to show you the best way to use this functionality. So we've into our mail merge section. If we just type in new, for example, because we want to put in the new client questionnaire, you can see how there it is. There's the new client questionnaire. Likewise, if you're using the site meeting agenda, you start typing in the word site meeting, and there it is. Just makes it so much easier to use this particular function in your mail merge. And finally, the site inspection report works the same way. So I just want to stop there for a minute before we move now into the next section, where we're going to look at the way in which the value box works. And what we're going to do is, one of the things that's been very conscious of lately is that we get the impression that everything's new and changing rapidly, but the actual tools and approaches we're using are actually quite old. And I'd like you to think for a moment about the humble banana. The banana is what's called a commodity. So most of us look at one banana and see another banana and think they're both the same thing. But as far back ago as 1944, during the Second World War, a South American company called Chiquita decided that they could see a way in which they could brand their bananas to make them look different to all the other bananas out there. And that is what we're doing as builders. We want our banana to look something different. So bear with me for a moment, and I'll show you a video of the very first Chiquita banana ad. And in case you're wondering, Chiquita is Spanish for little girl. We're going to see how they branded a commodity. A commodity means it's a basic good that's interchangeable. And what we're trying to do in terms of what we're doing with the value box and how we sell and market to people is to look different. So we had a trial run with this afternoon, and it worked on the screen. So hopefully all of you can now see that screen of the Chiquita banana ad. Is that correct? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to play that. It takes about a minute. And what this is doing, it's similar to what the franchisee on the South Coast is doing, which is establishing a high market position. They're providing and sharing information about bananas as a whole, and you can easily add in place of bananas building homes.
I was going to say, I do recall Mark talking about bananas.
So that we take a high market position, but it's about information sharing and giving the client information that will then establish you as the most professional, knowledgeable builder that they're going to deal with. And we'll extrapolate that a bit more when we look at this value box. So get ready.
I'm Chiquita Banana, and I've come to say bananas have to ripen in a certain way, and when they're flecked with brown and have a golden hue, bananas taste the best and are the best for you. You can put them in a salad. Green? No, not yet, my dear. That greenish way you're looking means that you are ripe for cooking. How about me? No, when you are fully ripe, my dear, those little flecks of brown appear. Me? You're most digestible, my friend. Delicious too from end to end. You can put them in a pie, any way you want to eat them. It's impossible to beat them, but bananas like the climate of the very, very tropical equator. So you should never put bananas in the refrigerator. Bananas are a solid food that doctors now include in baby's diet. And since they are so good for baby, I think we all should try it. Oh! See.
So you can see there that they were making general observations about bananas, nothing specific to their South American grown ones. The next stage of the campaign, they had a series of stickers where they branded the bananas, and the sticker said, look for the seal of the peel. And they started to establish themselves as having difference based on taste, appearance, freshness, nutrition, value, and consistency of size. So the message that has for us as builders is very heavily incorporated the notion of the value box. So if we're looking at building a house, when we're a client or a prospect and we talk to somebody, the price is a set amount for the purposes of what we're talking about here. You've got a dollar value of what the house is worth. If we're dealing with someone who isn't in overalls, going back to our Thomas Edison quote, and is doing things in a slapdash fashion, yeah, it's a great home, I'm a great bloke, we use good trades, you'll get a really good quality house, it's fantastic value for money. We're not getting a lot of value in the value box because the dollar value versus the perception of what we're getting is quite small. However, the price doesn't change, but if the builder is telling the client, and I've put in some examples there in our case of some of the things that we do as a business, you notice there that the value items have become significantly larger than the cost item. So the value proposition to the client means that we're giving them more value for money because we're giving them a lot more things. And the reason we're giving them is because we're telling them, we're establishing the things that we do, which makes us different. So our bananas are better because we deliver a client portal, we have a communication guarantee, we have an integrity edge quality assurance system. You can build our house, your house, or custom design. And as you move through the list, we're establishing not only credibility, but reasons to buy from us. The term unique is very heavily overused these days. What we're really talking about is trying to look different, to differentiate ourselves from our competitors. And if we work hard at our sales and we make the client aware in simple, plain language of the things we do, which make us different, and even if your competitors are doing the same things, but they don't tell them, it doesn't mean anything. It only means something when you tell the client and make them aware of it. That's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, questions for Richard, because I think that's a first for us, seeing a digitised banana in a training session. So
Speak for yourself.
I thought that was wonderful and very thought-provoking. And I hope it's not a play on where Shane, Tim and I live, being the banana capital.
No, that was just a coincidence.
Very good. So any questions for Richard before we move on? Well, thank you, Richard. That was very informative, and yeah, agree 100%. There is this perception that we're selling a commodity, and of course we're not, and repositioning that's so important. A late question has come in. Oh, Denise. Thank you, Richard. Good, Denise.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Denise.
Look, I had hoped to share this afternoon on building a winning team, and I'll just, I guess, bring that up as a little teaser because we've exhausted our time this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed the presentations. Next training session, I'm going to lead in with building a winning team because I know a lot of you would like to talk about that. I want to say if you are working on recruitment at the moment or having challenges with, I guess, training or challenges in keeping a stable team, please reach out to me one-on-one and I'll run you through some really helpful techniques about doing team well. But if I don't hear from any of you specifically on that subject, we'll do a full 15, 20 minutes at next training session. So thanks to everyone that presented this afternoon. Appreciate everyone taking time out of their Friday afternoon to be part of it, and we look forward to connecting with you all next week. Bye for now.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.